Okay, we all know that Bo knows hitting.
Barfield better hurry. It is going to be over his head. The ball took off on him. Bo will go for two and stand up. There'll be some stolen base records broken this year. Live ball, left field. Bo Jackson got a
Bo knows fielding.
with that speed he recovers and he's got Mosby will go back.
Yesterday that he was in a lot.
Bo also knows football.
Right there, that last little lunge got it.
But does Bo know Nintendo? Now, you might not even know that there was a Bo Jackson baseball game for the NES. It was kind of an uncommon game, but this wasn't like a classic game that was uncommon because of like some business reason or something like that. Now, this was just a crappy game that nobody wanted to buy. So the first thing you're going to notice about this game is this menu system. It's pretty simple. You push the A button in one of the directions to choose the strategy before the ball is pitched. You've got these menus when you're hitting as well as when you're pitching. Now, according to the manual, after you choose your pitch, you can technically throw any of these pitches at 3 different speeds. You're supposed to be able to select a speed after you choose which pitch to throw by messing with the control pad. And you're also supposed to be able to push the pitch more to the left or the right after you've pitched the ball. However, in my experience, none of this actually works.
Strike!
All of my pitches go straight no matter what I do. And it's kind of a crappy system anyway. It's a little bit like some of the later Bases Loaded games. Now, I'm sure that there's some sort of trick to getting the controls to actually work right, but my feeling is that the control in this game is honestly just delayed. Anyway, pitching is actually the least of your concerns. Hitting in this game is close to impossible.
Strike!
The problem is this perspective.
Strike!
So by the time you can figure out if it's a ball or a strike, you're too late to swing.
Strike!
And the worst part is that the hit detection is just off. When you hit the ball, it looks like you missed it. Alright, we need to have a talk about this. So many of these old baseball games get something as basic as the relationship between hitting and pitching mechanics all wrong. And this game is actually a classic example. You see, if you design your game so that the sprites are huge like Bo Jackson's baseball, it's going to be really hard for your players to have any kind of depth perception. Games like RBI 94 and the Sega Genesis have the same problem. Because there was this fascination with doing this stupid 3D effect where the ball gets bigger, you can't tell where the ball is before you swing. In my opinion, the worst culprit was RBI 95 on the 32X. And you know, it's not just Sega games that had problems with this perspective. There are a ton of baseball games out there that suffer from similar issues. So check out Super Famicom 5, for example. It's hard to hit because pitches have this confusing 3D effect that's totally unnecessary. The first Super Famicom game doesn't have this at all, and it's a lot easier to play. Of course, Bo Jackson's baseball is on a much less capable machine, but you can see that they were going for the same kind of bizarre 3D effect. And though this might be sacrilegious, Ken Griffey Jr. Presents Major League Baseball has a similar problem. That game makes up for the issue by being very generous with hit detection. So I know that companies back then wanted to take that classic RBI baseball perspective and, you know, shake it up, make it so that it looks a little bit different. Some games actually did a really good job with their sort of 3D feel. Go play World Series Baseball on the Genesis, for example. But the thing is that making those big changes really wasn't all that necessary, especially if you look at the games where it worked well. So in my mind, the RBI baseball model is ideal because you can easily see where the ball is coming and whether it's moving to the left or to the right. Now you can put in 3D effects like in Powerful Pro Yaku 94, but they need to be reasonable. The hardest part about hitting in this game is actually the change of speeds, not the place where the ball is pitched. In Bo Jackson's baseball, just figuring out at which point you're supposed to swing is challenging.
Strike! You're out!
And this is not a small problem. This is a huge problem because a lot of your players are going to spend a lot of time hitting. So far we've seen issues with pitching and with hitting, right? So what about fielding? Is that going to be okay? Nope. The fielding in this game is simply horrible. Now this game was made in 1990, which was apparently the year that everybody wanted to make a baseball game with the perspective zoomed way in. The perspective is kind of similar to Baseball Stars, which came out the same year. Little League Baseball, also 1990, is another example of this. But the fielding in Bo Jackson Baseball just looks blocky. And it is impossible to tell who you're controlling. In fact, the game will usually switch control of your player in the middle of an important play, which is ridiculous. This is similar to the awful fielding controls in Bases Loaded 3. Okay, look guys, it's really not that hard to make like a playable fielding system in a baseball game. I'll show you. So Bad News Baseball has the best fielding system out of all the 8-bit baseball games. Your players move quickly. They can also throw really fast, sometimes a little bit too fast. But the best part is that you can see a good chunk of the screen at once. So I know that there were a couple of tricks that programmers would use back in those days to make an NES baseball game that wouldn't like slow down like crazy. But apparently the people at Data East that made this Bo Jackson game didn't really get the memo. If the bases are loaded, the fielding screen slows down to a crawl. This happens despite the fact that you can barely see any of the field. Now that doesn't happen in Bad News Baseball. It also really doesn't happen in Baseball Simulator 1000, even though you can see almost the entire field at once. Even Dusty Diamond's All-Star Softball works better, and that game had individual sprites for all of the individual characters in the game. You'd think that it would be worse. Okay, so we got the pitching is bad, the hitting is bad, and the fielding is bad. 3 things in this Bo Jackson game are bad. So what does that leave us with? Like maybe the sound? Okay, the sound in this game is awesome. The ball and strike calls are legendary.
Ball! Strike! Strike!
And the coolest part is when you get an argument.
He was safe by a mile! You're out! He was safe! You're out!
Seriously, the sound in this game is like what happens when your 9-year-old son decides he doesn't want to use his inside voice anymore. That part of this game is a lot of fun.
He was safe by a mile. You're out. He was safe. You're out.
There was no official license for this game, of course, no teams and no players, but still the player names are actually pretty cool. I chose to be Kansas City. So we had a guy named Brat leading off.
Strike.
Our pitcher's name was Hogken, which I think is a riff of Saberhagen.
Strike.
I'm pretty sure our left fielder Wills is supposed to be Willie Wilson.
Strike.
Other names make no sense, like Defender for what is probably supposed to be Mike McFarlane.
Strike.
So the roster name changes in this game are not quite as cool as they are on like Roger Clemens Baseball on the NES, and they're nowhere near as hilarious and filled with cultural references as like Ken Griffey Jr. Presents Major League Baseball on the Super Nintendo, but they're still kind of fun. Anyway, the other thing is that Ariel from The Little Mermaid sings the national anthem. I mean, just look at this, it's her. Since our third baseman was named Thumper, I'm pretty sure that the Disney influence was strong in this one. And anyway, I guess that's the other cool thing about this game. I mean, I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, this is actually a pretty below average NES baseball game, but it's still not like really bad. It's not bad enough for me to really make fun of it. Just wait till we get to that Roger Clemens game. Hitting sucks, but at least you can get used to it. The computer is awful at running the bases, which is pretty hilarious.
He was safe by a mile. You're out. He was safe. You're out.
The fielding system is completely hopeless. I mean, fielding and freaking I Love Softball is better than this game. The pitching system is half-baked and pretty much unfinished. But wait, there's more. Did you know that there was also a prototype of this game for the TurboGrafx? So this is a prototype of TV Sports Baseball, which is almost the same game. Okay, the batter-pitcher matchup looks different. I don't know why this arrow at the bottom is going crazy, but it doesn't do anything anyway. In fact, I can't figure out how to control any of my pitches. Anyway, there are only a couple of teams and they're all pretty much the same. Hitting in this game is extremely awkward. Once you get to the fielding screen though, you can see the similarities. And once again, you can't really field the ball because you can't see anything. I can't say I'm really all that sad that this game was never released. Seriously, why couldn't they just get a license for a Pro Yaku World Stadium? That game is awesome, and it really is a shame that it didn't come out in the US. Why would anybody think that this game was a suitable alternative? Anyway, stay away from Bo Jackson Baseball on the NES. Like I said, it's not quite bad enough to be among the worst games on the platform, but other than the really cool voices and The Little Mermaid, there really isn't anything like worth writing home about for this game.